Well, here we are again, folks. It's Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. So proud to be with you today. You know, in the Old Testament, God used some men. One of the terminologies he used was that he used mighty men. He used men that were mighty in his eyes for him, that would go out and say, I love Jesus. I love God. I'm following God. I'm going to be a Christian. A real one. I'm going to give up the world and I'm going to do what God would have me do. God will use you. And then he used the men of war. Well, I got news for you. Living the Christian life today, we're in a war. We're in a war against Satan. We're in a war against the flesh. I think our biggest problem is ourself. We're in a war against ourself to get ourselves out of the way so that we can follow God. And so that's one place we're in a war. And then he used the judge. By the way, we have some Christian judges in our world today. We actually have one in our church. She's a woman. She's been a judge for about 30, 40 years. And a very good one. I would love to see her appointed to a state position. But the problem is, it would take her away from home. And we don't want to see that. So, but God has used the judge. He's used judges. And then the prophet. The prophet, God has had prophets, his prophets, for years. Now the devil has prophets too. And companies have prophets. There are all kinds of prophets in this world. But there are very few godly prophets. And then God used the prudent. Who are the prudent? The prudent are those who have paid attention to what God said, done what God said, and followed what God said, and they've been prudent in it, and God has blessed them and made them to be something that they ain't. And then God said he used the ancient. And he did. He used the people of old that passed on the word all the way through the Bible from Genesis on. He used people that have been, I'm considered ancient. I'm 76 years old, and a 30-year-old considers me an ancient old man. But I'm an ancient too, and God's using me now. Well, it takes some anciency in order to get to where God has to get you sometime. He has to pry on you and work on you. And the captain. God used men that were capable of being captains. He used captains of all types. Now, we usually think, when we hear the word captain, we think ship. Well, a captain of a ship, that's a pretty responsible man. You take a ship 900 feet long, 800 feet long, and 28 feet wide, and it has 400 people working on it, 300 people working on it or so, even less. A captain has a big responsibility. And then he's got to keep the ship in the shipping lanes. And he's got to keep it in places out of harm's way. Well, he's a captain. He got the title captain for a reason, because he's been stewardess in whatever he's doing, whatever he's the captain of. I was the captain of a 6-child family for years. I've got to say that I didn't do very good in some areas of it. But then he used honorable men, men that had honor, men that were not refuted by anybody, men that God could say, this is an honorable man. He says what he does what he says, and says what he does. He means what he says. He pays his bills. He doesn't lie, cheat, steal. He doesn't rob people. He goes out and helps his neighbor. He does the things that he's supposed to do, and he has become an honorable man. And then the counselor, the man who would counsel people. I go next door to my neighbor and counsel with them some. I counsel with some of my neighbors, and some of them appreciate it, and some of them think I'm sticking my nose in their business. But counseling is something we need to do, and we need to counsel. I have a lot of young people ask me for counsel, and I tell them what God would have me tell them, I believe. And then the cunning officer, or the artifactor, God used them. A man that could do pottery, a man that could make pottery and do things. God used the potter. the potter at the wheel. He used the example that the potter at the wheel, he's making this beautiful pot, and something happens to cause it get marred, and he says, and I can't leave this pot looking like this. I'm going to reuse this clay in a different way. And he molds that pot that was going to be into something different. I probably am not what God would have had me to be had I got saved at a young age and was following God. But now I'm who I am. I was a marred pot at the age of 30. And God put his hands on me again. Through life, he put his hands on me several times. And through life, at the age of 30, he put his hands on me again and said, I'm going to make you a different pot, a new pot, a different kind of pot. And he did. And then he used eloquent orators. And he used the ineloquent orators too. But he used many elegant orators who were able to speak, who got up and spoke and said, this is what needs to be done, or this is where it needs to be, this is where we need to be. Or there are many, many elegant preachers. I have the privilege right now of sitting under a very elegant preacher. If you go to faith.com LaGrange, in LaGrange Baptist Church, faith.com LaGrange, you'll find an eloquent preacher there. His name is Donald Yancey, a very elegant preacher. He works all week, hours and hours and hours, to bring a message that is as perfect as a man can bring it from what he gathers out of the Bible. And he does it very eloquently. And for a man of not a whole lot of age and not a whole lot of training in that area, he does very, very good. Very good. Now we have children. God used children through the Bible. When Jesus was a child, I'm sure that he was being used. And God used children through the Bible. And he said the children that he used, they got around Jesus. And Peter tried to drive him away. And Jesus said, hey, leave them alone. For such is the kingdom of heaven. Around my Father's throne are millions of children. And even now I see this. We have been aborting children in the United States by the millions. And everyone that gets aborted goes to heaven. I would hate to be in the place in hell that God has set up for the abortionist. That's a murderer. He has a place in hell. Ain't no murderers are going to heaven, the Bible said. And the man who murders babies, does abortions, cannot claim spirituality. He cannot claim that he's a Christian and abort a baby. He's not a Christian. He's a liar. If he says, I am a Christian and I'm doing abortions, he's a liar. If it came down to the wire and he either had to do abortions and denounce his Christianhood, or get out of the doctrine because he couldn't do abortion, he needs to get out of the doctrine. God will give him something to do. God will give him a place somewhere else where they don't want people who do abortions. Where they don't want people who do abortions. And then we have babies. And those babies are a witness. They're a witness against the abortionist. Those that go to heaven dead. Because they were taken cut out of their mother's womb. When they were so many trimesters, they could actually be pulled out and slapped on the bottom and they'd breathe. That's murder. Well, those babies that are murdered are going to be witnesses against the doctor that cut them up. Hey, hell is going to be full of torments. All kinds of torments. Can you imagine hearing 1 million or 2 babies screaming at you that you killed and you're in hell, and that's going to be forever? That's going to be forever and forever and forever and forever. If you're a nurse and you're watching this excerpt and you work with a doctor that kills babies, You need to find you another profession. You need to get in another hospital. You need to leave that one. And get yourself, if you have to go on a mission field and be a nurse. But being a nurse, the requirement shouldn't be to kill babies. You need to be not involved in that. I don't know what the punishment's going to be for that, but I know one thing. It's not going to be a good one. And then, last of all, in this list of 14 people, the classes of people that God used and still does use, and there's many more in these classes, but is God uses just plain people like me, just a plain person with an 8th grade education. God allowed me to go to college, believe it or not, and get a degree. But I did it because I was helped by somebody who took into consideration that my spelling would never ever come up to what it needed to be, being a dyslexic speller. So therefore, here I am now with a degree. But I've got an 8th grade education, that's what I have. But one of my friends I was talking with this week, he said, I went to school 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 years. So I went to school 4 years. He's got $1 million business going, and he runs it with a 4th grade education. So it's not your education that holds you back. It's whether you're willing or not to step out with the common sense God gave you up here and use it. And you don't need that education. It'd be nice to have, but you don't absolutely need it. Did you know that God said in Exodus, back all the way in Exodus, talking to his people there, and he repeats the same thing in the New Testament for the Christian, that we are a peculiar treasure. We are a peculiar treasure. On this earth, a Christian that really follows God is a peculiar treasure. And let's remember this. We are God's prized possession. A saved person is God's prized possession. We're one of the pearls on his necklace, if you please. We're one of the pearls walking on the streets of gold in heaven in the future. We're going to be something in heaven that God is going to use. So therefore, you need to mind yourself all the way back in Exodus. It says God will be an enemy to our enemies. If we have an enemy from the devil come to persecute us, he is the enemy of God. I would not pray that God would hit him with lightning. I would pray that God would smite his heart and he become one of the Christian, one of us, a Christ-following person. Again in Exodus, God will bless us daily in our daily provision. This is Old Testament I'm talking about, and this is New Testament time, and this is a New Testament thing that God said that he will do. In Exodus 23:25, he said, if you will follow me, my people, which are called by my name, will follow me, I will keep them from sickness. Wow. If we are his people today, we are following him. And we can claim that. We can claim that. In Deuteronomy 4:14, God will prolong our days upon the earth. I know my days are prolonged. I tarried at the bottom for about 12, 15 years. And he that tarries long at the bottom usually dies young. I don't know how many deadly wrecks God spared me from. You can't count them all. Deadly things could have happened, and God spared me. Wow. God will drive out our enemies from us. Somebody persecuting you, somebody coming after you, somebody doing things. I could point you out 40 things right now that God has delivered me from that could have got me in bad shape. Back again in Deuteronomy 4:37-38, God will. And 7 and 13, God will love and bless and multiply us. Well, I'm past the age of multiplying by children, but God will multiply me by spiritual children. Spiritual children are forever. When you have spiritual children, they're forever. Some of my physical children may not be forever. They have made choices that are opposite of what God says get you into heaven. So it's important that you make the right choices. Now, let's see what else God will do. For America, the country that says, "In God we trust," God has blessed us as the nation above all nations on the earth. God has blessed America. We may not be right now the nation that turns the most money in the world, but that's not what makes you great. Following God's what makes you great. When you follow the Lord Jesus Christ and He blesses your country and blesses your home, blesses your flag, blesses your statement, "In God we trust," then you have a blessed nation. We have allowed heathens to infiltrate our White House. We have allowed heathens to infiltrate our judge systems. People who do not even believe in God, who will spend eternity in hell and pay the punishment for the damage they've done to the United States of America in hell forever. They die and go to hell forever. Some of the richest, supposedly the wisest people on earth in the judgeships in the United States Senate. And they're heathen as they come. And they have no morals. And they're judges. We find them all the time, perverted judges. Some that do not really have the ability or the right to be where they are and shouldn't be. That's where we are in that today, talking about the people. Then we have some classes right here. In Isaiah lists some classes that will not inherit the kingdom of God. The homosexuals, very first thing on the list. In that day, Isaiah's day, we lost whole nations because of it. God took whole nations and destroyed the whole nation because of homosexuality. He killed it. The wicked are not going to inherit the kingdom of God. They will not be in heaven. They will be in hell forever. The Bible even lists the covetous, those that covet all the things of the world and not anything of God. They will be in hell. The drunkard. The drunkard. And had I died before the age of 30, I was a drunkard. I would have died and went to hell. But God saw fit to keep me from that. To those that carry heavy loads of sin. Listen, if you've asked Jesus to forgive you of your sin, you're not supposed to carry that anymore. You don't carry that anymore. You don't carry that heavy load of sin anymore. You ask him one time and he's done it. He's forgave you. It's gone. No more there. Gone forever. To them that call evil good. Wow. To those that call evil good. We got to be careful we don't do that. There are a lot of chapters in Isaiah. Isaiah was one of God's crowning writers in the Old Testament. And he wrote these things that I'm reading to you right now. In Isaiah 5 and 20, let's look at that. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. They put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And verse 21, woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, the prudent in their own sight. They think too much of themselves. They think, hey, I don't walk on the same side of the street you walk on. I don't live in the same kind of town you live in. I'm over here in a high-class neighborhood. And I don't have to put up with what you have to put up with. All people are stinking. They don't have to be in a stinking little town to be stinking. They can be in a high-class neighborhood where everybody has a golf cart and a Mercedes-Benz and a Rolls-Royce and still be in a stinking neighborhood. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength that mingle strong drink. You know, that's the bartender. The bartender is under a curse because he's serving drinks. I've heard people say, I'm a Christian, but I'm a bartender. I'm a Christian, but I sell liquor. No, you're one or the other. If you're a Christian, you don't mix drinks and you don't sell liquor. Or you're not a Christian. Which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteous for their righteous from him. There's many people wouldn't have anything to do, wouldn't even have a Christian come paint their house because he's a Christian. I have many people today tell me, well, look, I got my own religion. What heaven are you going to? I ask them, you have your own religion. What heaven do you plan on being in forever? Oh, some people say, you know, I'm not going to heaven, I'm going to inherit this earth. I told a man the other day that told me that. And I said, have you read that this earth is cast into the lake of fire? It's cast into the fire forever and ever to burn. In Revelation, yeah, but we don't believe Revelation. Well, you might not believe it, but it's true. It's going to come about. And if you're on this earth, you'll burn forever with it. You know, wine is a mocker, and strong drink is raging, and they that partake of it are not wise. Wow. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength, which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteousness of the righteous. Therefore, As the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consume the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against him, his people, and he has stretched forth his hand against them, and has smitten them. And the hills did tremble, and their carcasses were torn in the midst of the street. For all this his anger is not turned away, but this hand is stretched out still. Wow. Isn't that something? We can walk by, spit in the face of God, and he'll still have his hand held out, saying, before you ask me, I forgive you. But if you don't ask me to forgive you before you die, you'll end up in hell. That's not my will, but that's a fact. So you must ask me if you want forgiveness for your sin. God is a jealous God, yet he is a fair God. Let's go back up into the New Testament. Well, no, we're going to stick with the Old Testament for a few more minutes in Deuteronomy. God has prolonged the days on the earth for me. God has driven out enemies from me. God has loved me and blessed me and multiplied me. God will bless us above the nations of the earth. We crossed that a few minutes ago. America has been blessed above the nations of the earth. God will bless us wherever we are. If we are his children, wherever we are, he watches over us. God's blessing will be upon our children also, but we need to pray for them. God's blessing will be upon our income and efforts. I've had that happen to me in spite of the fact that I'm a little peon person as far as any kind of notoriety goes. God's blessing will be upon our income and effort. God will continually increase our supply. I can't deny that. It's true. We will abound in prosperity, in goods, in children, and in crops, and in all the land. God will open up his storehouse. He will become our total supply. Last but not least, God will bless all of the work of our hands if we are following him the way we're supposed to. God will prosper us enough to lend, and we will not need to borrow. God will make us the head and not the tail. We will be above, not underneath. And the last thing in Psalm 89:34, God will not break his covenant. He made a covenant with us when we got saved, and that covenant says, if you are my child, and you ask, and don't ask amiss, I will receive your request and answer it for you. And this is the way God has done for years for me and my wife and my family, and still does. Now let me tell you something. Asking Jesus to save you is one thing. Following through is another. Say, Lord, I'm a sinner. Forgive me of my sin. Come in my heart and save my soul. Next thing is go to a church, Bible-believing church, that baptizes by submersion, and get baptized the very next Sunday. And you need to do that. Well, our time's come and gone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.